vamos a platicar con el meteorólogo Tom Bradshaw, que está en Fort Worth, Texas, o Texas, en el sur de los Estados Unidos. Él es el jefe del Servicio Meteorológico Nacional de la Oficina Regional de Dallas, Fort Worth, que es el conocido como el National Weather Service. Él no habla español, entonces vamos a hacer aquí una de las mecánicas normales, ¿verdad? Yo le voy a preguntar en español, él va a contestar en su idioma y usted tendrá la respuesta en función de este problema que es muy grave en los Estados Unidos. Si no fuera grave, le aseguro que no estaríamos hablando de él. El hecho de que a usted no le moje, esto no quiere decir que no sea muy grave. Buenas tardes, señor Bradshaw.
Yes, good afternoon.
Señor Bradshaw, el río Mississippi, ah, ¿cuántas ocasiones ha sido causa de desbordamientos graves como este, mayores o menores, y por qué razón no se ha podido implementar una política, un sistema para evitar estas inundaciones?
Pardoname, this is, I apologize. No, I don't speak Spanish. I apologize. I'm not sure if there's going to be an interpreter or not.
Bueno, yes, we do have one.
Okay.
Yes.
No problem.
Are you listening to this person or not? To the interpreter?
No, I apologize. Pardoname, I'm not able to hear the interpreter.
All right, well. Are we ready? Okay, well, the question is, the Mississippi River is causing a lot of problems to a lot of states.
Yes.
So, what I want to know, and the audience, is if you can tell me if this is the worst scenario, the worst tragedy that this river has caused to so many states and people.
Well, it's certainly one of the worst floods we've had on the lower part of the Mississippi River since at least 1927. We have not seen flood stages levels on the river since at least that time period, the late 20s. So certainly it's been it certainly caused impacts to folks living along the river, both in terms of agricultural losses, as well as many folks having their homes inundated. There have been significant impacts in those areas up and down the river over the last 2 weeks, basically, and that's going to continue for the next at least the next probably 2 to 4 weeks.
Let me translate to the audience for a second, very quick. Nos está diciendo nuestro invitado, el señor Bradshaw, que en los años, el año 27 también se dio una circunstancia similar, en que el río también generó las consecuencias tan graves como las que está generando a varios estados de los Estados Unidos, que llevan 2 semanas con este problema tan severo, con tanta destrucción, y que todavía se espera que siga presente por 4 semanas más. Mr. Bradshaw, what is the number of states that are suffering for these floods?
Well, at the present time, the main states that are being impacted, that are seeing a lot of the suffering, would include Mississippi, Western Tennessee, Arkansas, and Louisiana. So at least 4 states currently at the present time. Now, this flood that we're seeing over the lower part of the river is actually a continuation of a flood that we've been experiencing along the river over the past month or so. And, a few weeks ago, we were actually seeing, and actually until quite recently, we were seeing floods in Kentucky, Missouri, and Illinois as well. But the main state that's bearing the brunt of it right now, the worst of it, is the state of Mississippi.
Nos dice que los estados en este momento afectados son Mississippi, Tennessee, también Luisiana, Arkansas, pero que en semanas pasadas lugares como Kentucky, Missouri y también Illinois se han visto afectados por estas inundaciones excesivas. What is the main reason why the river is going to these levels?
We actually have 3 reasons. First off, we had a very heavy snowfall. A lot of snow fell in the upper Midwest of the United States over the winter, and a lot of that snow melt occurred during the March and April time frame up in Minnesota and areas near there. So that came down. We normally see that every year, every spring. But in addition to that, we had extremely heavy rainfall across parts of the Ohio Valley and parts of the Midwest during the late winter and early spring. And then finally, the third reason is that we had a very, very heavy rainfall event that fell just in the last month or so from basically areas in Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, in that general area. And all of that rain kind of fell on top or ran into the river in addition to the rain that had fallen earlier in the spring, as well as the snow melt. So it was basically adding up the contributions from all 3 of those impacts. They all sort of came together at the same time along the middle and lower parts of the river.
Me está diciendo el señor meteorólogo Tom Bradshaw desde la zona de Fort Worth en Texas, que las razones son una, el deshielo que ha estado en las montañas y se ha derretido y se ha ido por el cauce o los cauces del Mississippi, también lluvias exageradas que han estado cayendo en los últimos tiempos y problemas similares en zonas como Ohio y como lo que se llama el Midwest, que han tenido también lluvias importantes. Just to have the figure, the Mississippi River, which is the length of the river?
Well, I don't know the exact length of it. I believe it's the longest. It's the second longest river in the United States. It's certainly well over 1,000 miles in length from the mouth of the river in Louisiana all the way up into northern Minnesota. Again, I don't have the exact length, but I know it's certainly one of our longest rivers, and it drains. The Mississippi drains the largest amount of area in the United States than any other river. So it's certainly the most important river that we have in terms of delivering goods from the Midwest down to the port of New Orleans and shipping products for export to other countries. So a lot of barge traffic, a lot of navigation occurs up and down the river, and so it's probably one of the most important rivers that we have in the United States. And so it's the flooding of it is certainly obviously a major impact to commerce in the United States.
Two more questions. Could you tell me which are the most immediate consequences for the economy of the people who are or have been living around this area for a long time or for a short period of
Sure.
time? And next to that, what is if you find one, what is the solution to try to diminish this risk and not having the same story every year?
Well, to answer the first question, the major impacts, probably the most important impacts, have been to agriculture. The flooding has impacted crops grown up and down the basin from the Midwest, up in Missouri, Illinois, those areas, all the way down through Louisiana, parts of Mississippi. The entire area has been affected. A lot of cropland has been put underwater, and that's certainly been an impact. A couple of bridges have been closed at various times. One of our interstates was closed for a period of time in Arkansas. So we've had that sort of impact. But probably I would say that the impact mainly has been to agriculture, in addition to individuals being impacted with their homes being flooded. To answer your second question, there basically the Corps of Engineers, the United States Corps of Engineers, has developed a very sophisticated system of levees up and down the river, and these levees are able to handle flooding, on a yearly basis. It's only when you get to these very, very high levels, like what we're seeing this year, that it pretty much exceeds our ability to contain all the water. One of the big problems is that a lot of water, when the river is this high, a lot of the water that you have in tributary streams, creeks, smaller rivers that feed into the Mississippi, the water's not able to spill into the river. It's so high. In fact, the Mississippi backs up into these side tributaries. And so you have a lot of flooding due to that, and there's really no way there are not many easy solutions to that kind of flooding. Although we're always looking for new ways to, but that's kind of what we're faced with a big flood like this.
Yes. Well, maybe someone will say that the best solution is to move my house and my family from this area.
I know those that will. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that unfortunately are not able to move, and that's the downside to it. So.
Nos dice el señor Bradshaw que es un problema que básicamente lo que está haciendo es crear problemas graves a la agricultura de los Estados Unidos, especialmente a la agricultura de los Estados Unidos, por la longitud que ya comentamos del río Mississippi, y que pues también el agua, cuando ya no puede ir por el curso del río, se va por lo que son algunos de los brazos de este río tierra adentro, y que en cuanto a prevención dice, bueno, pues es muy difícil estas circunstancias, hemos tratado de controlarlas y hasta el momento ha sido imposible llegar a tener un control sobre este tipo de fenómenos tan graves, pero seguimos estudiando y trabajando en los Estados Unidos para encontrar fórmulas que eviten este problema. The last question for you, Mr. Bradshaw. When I say you, I mean different institutions. Are you worried that this kind of water that is all over this area might develop some sickness, epidemics, something in the ranks of the epidemics, etc.?
Well, that would I'm sure that's a possibility. That's a little outside of my area of expertise. That would be something that local and state health departments would be concerned about. Certainly, it does appear that we will be having a lot of standing water remaining over many parts of at least Mississippi, Louisiana, and perhaps even Arkansas for the next few weeks. And I'm certain that there are local health departments and state health departments that will be assessing what may need to be done as far as protecting populations from any kind of waterborne illnesses, that sort of thing. But certainly I would not doubt that there would be some concern. Again, it would probably be a question you would have to refer to the health departments, the experts in that area.
All right. Thank you. Last point. Some people on television and radio, papers, sometimes in restaurants, they comment very frequently an idea that says this is going to be a very dry year for the U.S. What do you think about that?
Well, that's actually a fact at this point. Much of the southern United States, in particular, a good part of the western half of Texas, parts of Oklahoma, parts of New Mexico, as well as Louisiana, have been very dry. We have had a very dry winter and spring over parts of the southern plains and areas actually immediately adjacent to where this flooding is occurring. And that's a pattern that the Weather Service had pretty well anticipated, but it has certainly been severe from the standpoint of its impacts on agriculture and water supply.
Yes.
Having said that, as we go into the summer months, we are hopeful that we will see some reprieve from the continued drought here in the southern part of the U.S., and that we will start to see some rains. We're already starting to see some increase in rainfall across Texas, which is welcome, but certainly we have had a very, very dry winter and spring, and that has led to some impacts, including wildfires and those sorts of things for parts of Texas and New Mexico to this point.
Having your answer very clear, to round up this conversation with you, this kind of sort of dry year, is it normal as an average that you have some years with a lot of water and some years with less water?
Well, it's normal, particularly in the southern plains, where I live here in Dallas-Fort Worth. We tend to have either dry conditions or wet conditions more often than not. So we certainly go through wet and dry spells that are caused by very large scale wind patterns that we have around the planet. This happened to be a year, interestingly enough, where we had drought conditions in the southern United States, and at the same time we had extremely heavy rainfall and heavy snowfall in the north and the central parts of the country. So it is again, it's interesting that you could actually have a river like the Mississippi in a major flood, and it's moving through an area that's actually experiencing a drought, and that's sort of what we're seeing right now. That's just sort of the way the weather patterns line up sometimes. It's kind of interesting how that happens.
Yes. Nos dice por último que de esos dos temas, que este tipo de circunstancias de inundaciones, de lluvias excesivas, no obedecen a algo específico que nunca haya ocurrido, que hay épocas y hay épocas de mucho y de poco, y que es un patrón que así se va comportando al paso de los años, y que en este año 2011 sí se espera que sea un año más seco que otros años en los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica, y que no deja de ser paradójico tener esta mega inundación en los estados que él nos ha comentado a lo largo del río Mississippi, que empieza en el Golfo de México y se va hasta arriba, hasta el estado de Illinois y un poco más allá. Y a la vez tener estados como es los casos que mencionó de Arizona, Nuevo México, Texas, que están sufriendo severamente por la falta de agua. Well, Mr. Bradshaw, thank you very much for your time from Dallas Fort Worth, and we have more elements to understand what is going on with this tragedy for so many people in this country.
Sure. Well, I enjoyed visiting with you, and we'll just hope that we can get the water out of there, and those folks can try to return normal at some point as soon as possible. Enjoyed visiting with you.
Yes. Well, that's what we hope, and nice talking to you, and have a nice afternoon.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
En su idioma, y usted tendrá la respuesta en función de este problema que es muy grave en los Estados Unidos. Si no fuera grave, le aseguro que no estaríamos hablando de él. El hecho de que a usted no le moje, esto no quiere decir que no sea muy grave. Buenas tardes, señor Bradshaw.
Yes, good afternoon.
Vamos a platicar con el meteorólogo Tom Bradshaw, que está en Fort Worth, Texas, en el sur de los Estados Unidos. Él es el jefe del servicio meteorológico. Señor Bradshaw, el río Mississippi, ¿cuántas ocasiones ha sido causa de desbordamientos graves como este, mayores o menores? ¿Y por qué razón nacional de la Oficina Regional de Dallas Fort Worth, que es el conocido como el National Weather Service? Él no habla español, entonces vamos a hacer aquí una de las mecánicas normales, ¿verdad? Yo le voy a preguntar en español, él va a contestar. No se ha podido implementar una política, un sistema para evitar estas inundaciones.
Pardoname, this is I apologize. No, I don't speak Spanish.